Okay, week 4 notes. The majority of the material in week 4 and week 5 is figuring out derivatives, figuring out slopes of tangent lines using these rules. So there's several rules. They kind of look complicated there on the paper, but they're really not. So we're going to start out kind of easy and then get a little bit more difficult. The most difficult rule of all of them all is the chain rule. Okay, so what we're trying to find is we're trying to find dy dx or y prime, or that's f prime, and they all mean slope of the tangent line. So all of these mean slope of the tangent line. So what we did prior weeks is we had a little formula. The limit as h goes to 0, and then we plugged in x plus h minus f of x all over h as h goes to 0, and we found a formula for the slope of the tangent line. So what they did is they did this over and over and over again, and they figured out these rules that we're going to talk about. So these are all shortcuts to what you did on week 3. So here we go. The derivative of y is y prime. dy dx. Slope. F prime. Whatever you want to call it. Okay, there's a whole bunch of different things that we're figuring out the derivative. So what I'm going to call it is I'm just going to call it y prime. Okay, you'll see me say that a lot. All right. So I'm just going to kind of erase this and call this y prime just to give me a little more room. But you could call it anything you want, any of those things. Okay? Y prime is probably the most common thing you'll see besides dy dx. So here's the first rule. It's called the power rule. So what you're going to do is take this exponent of 3, multiply it by the number out front. Now the number out front's a 1, so it's 3 times 1, which is 3. And then the exponents of 3, you're going to drop the exponent by 1, so it goes to a 2. Next one, 2 times 4 is 8. And then you always drop the exponent by 1. So now it goes from squared to the first power. All right. Next one, so this one here, it's minus. So just to kind of rewrite this one a little bit, this is 3x to the first. So 1 times 3 is 3. So now you're going to drop this by 1. So when you drop it by 1, you get x to the 0. So x to the 0 is 1. So the derivative of negative 3x is just negative 3. So all of those were the power rule. The last one is called the constant rule. The derivative of a constant, the derivative of any number is 0. So the derivative of 4 is 0. So that is the answer. So if you were to put in x plus h and then f of x into that limit formula that we did last week, you eventually would get this answer for the formula for the tangent line. Okay? So now the next one, I'm just going to replace the f of x with a y. So what you have to do sometimes before you take the derivative is you need to write it maybe a little bit better with exponents. So you can write this as x to the negative 2. All right, that'll help you before you do the derivative. So sometimes you have to rewrite these things before you do the derivative. That'll help you. So here we go. Derivative of y is y prime. 1/2 times 1 is 1/2. So now you're going to subtract an exponent. 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. You're subtracting a power. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. The derivative of 2x is 2. Remember, 1 times 2 is 2, and then it goes down by 1, so it goes x to the 0. And then the derivative of any number is 0. So this is the answer. So this would be fine for me if you rewrote it without using negative exponents. You would have 1 over 2, and then this is a square root, and it's negative, so it goes on the bottom. And then plus 2. So if you rewrote it, that's what it would be rewritten. Okay? Same thing with the next one. You might want to rewrite it before you take the derivative. So I'll just put a y instead of f of x. So this would be the cube root is 1/3 power minus pi, and then this is x to the -4th. All right, derivative of y is y prime. 1/3 times 1 is 1/3. Subtract a power, -2/3. All right, so now here's something different. Remember pi, that's a number. The derivative of a number is 0. This derivative is 0. -4 times 1 is -4. Remember, you're dropping it by 1, you're subtracting it. So that's the answer. Number 4, let's rewrite it. X to the 2/3 minus x to the 3/5 plus 9x to the -3 minus e. Okay, here we go. Derivative 2/3 x, drop it by 1, minus 3/5 times 1 is 3/5. Drop it by 1, -2/5. -3 times 9 is -27. Drop it by 1. And last, e is a number. The derivative of a number is 0, so the derivative of e is 0. So that would be your answer. So that is the power rule and the constant rule. Now what we're going to get into is what's called the quotient rule and the product rule. So if you look on the front, the product rule is when you see two things that are multiplied by one another. Now, there are two different ways you could actually do problem 5 and 6. You could actually multiply everything together and then do the product or do the derivative just the way we've done them. But I'm going to show you how to use the product rule. All right? So here's the product rule. Whenever you see two things multiplied by one another, that's chances are you're probably going to do the product rule. So let me rewrite this before we do the product rule. So y equals x to the -2, 2x plus 1. And then we'll write this one. This one you don't have to rewrite, okay? You can just kind of leave that go, all right? So here's how you do the product rule. Derivative of y is y prime. So the product rule is you do the first guy, that's what I call him, first guy, derivative of the second guy. So the derivative of 2x is 2. The derivative of 1 is 0. So first guy, derivative of the second guy, plus second guy, derivative of the first. The derivative of x to the -2. -2 times 1 is -2, and then you drop it by 1. So you really don't have to do much with this. You can get rid of the parenthesis there. Here you can multiply this through. So this will be -4 x to the add the exponents, which is -2, and then minus 2x to the -3. And then you can actually add these together. So -2x to the -2 minus 2x to the -3 would be your answer then for y prime. Okay? All right, next one. Y prime, first guy, derivative of the second guy. 10x, derivative of that is 10x, minus the derivative of 4x is 4, plus second guy, derivative of the first. Derivative of 2x is 2. Derivative of 3 is 0. So without multiplying this out, which is what you would do, to get a final answer, that's the answer for that for the time being. Okay, that is the product rule. So whenever you see two things multiplied by one another, I would use the product rule. Okay, so the bottom you can see towards the next two. These you see a division sign. So a division sign. And I will give you some tricks to do these every now and then on how to do the problems differently, which sometimes you can use. You don't have to use the quotient rule. You can actually use the product rule. When there's a division sign, you probably are going to think the quotient rule. All right. So what the y is y prime. So here we go. The quotient rule is you start with the bottom guy. I call him the bottom guy. Bottom guy times the derivative of the top minus top guy, derivative of the bottom. The derivative of x is 1. The derivative of 6 is 0. So bottom, derivative of the top, minus top, derivative of the bottom. All over the bottom guy squared. So the formulas are on the first paper that I gave you there, the front page. But I just kind of tried to use with bottom and top. It kind of flows a little bit better, and you can kind of remember it a little bit better. So then what you want to do is you want to multiply everything out on the top. The bottom you don't have to do anything with. Just write it like that. And then you simplify the top. So we get x squared minus 12x minus 1 all over x minus 6 squared. All right? There you go. All right, so that's how you do the quotient rule. Now, number 8, before I would do the quotient rule, because there's another rule that you don't, well, that one kind of you can do two different ways. I should back up. Number 8, you can use kind of the quotient rule and the product rule in the same problem, but that'll get kind of long and cumbersome. So what you want to do for that one is I would multiply that out first before I would do anything. All right, so let's multiply this out, and then we'll do the quotient rule. So when you multiply this out, you get 2x cubed minus 2x squared minus x squared plus 2x over x to the 4th. Okay, so we'll simplify one more time. So you have x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x all over x to the 4th. Okay, so now let's practice the quotient rule. So we have everything multiplied out. Derivative of y is y prime. Derivative of, so now the quotient rule, remember, you start with the bottom, okay? Bottom guy, derivative of the top. Here we go. Derivative of that is 3x squared. Derivative of that, next guy, is negative 6x. And the derivative of 2x is 2. All right, so kind of running out of room here. So bottom derivative of top minus, so we'll kind of have to go down here. Bottom derivative of top minus top derivative of the bottom, or x cubed. All over bottom guy squared. Bottom derivative of top minus top derivative of the bottom all over the bottom guy squared. So now you'd multiply all this out on the top, and the bottom you could simplify a little bit by making it x to the 8th. Okay, so I'll let you multiply this. If you want to stop the video, multiply all that out on the top, multiply, and then when you do this one, don't forget to take this negative sign through all of these things. So actually, maybe we should do this just to make sure you understand where the negative sign comes through. Okay, so let me go down here a little bit into the next problem, and then I'll erase it. So when you multiply this, you get 3x to the 6th minus 6x to the 5th plus 2x to the 4th. And then when you multiply this through, don't forget this negative sign, you get negative, right? There we go. You get negative 4x to the 6th. This negative makes that a positive. So you get positive 12x to the 5th. And then last but not least, get negative 2x times that, which is negative 8x to the fourth. All over x to the 8th. So then when you add like terms to the top to finish this off, you get negative x to the 6th, and then you get 6x to the 5th. We add those two together. And then it looks like negative 6x to the 4th all over x to the 8th. And that looks like it's your answer for that problem. Okay? So that's basically those rules in a nutshell. So those rules are going to come in handy when we go on to the last rule, which is chain rule. Okay? But what your book actually does, it actually throws in a special derivative, which is the derivative of e to the x. It actually throws this in a little early. Some textbooks don't throw this in quite as early. So here's how you do the derivative of e to something. Okay, now the exponent, you'll see, has an x in it. So here we go. The derivative of y is y prime. So the derivative of e to the whatever power is e to the whatever power. So it doesn't change, okay, which is what this formula says. Then what you do down below here is you take the derivative of the exponent. So the derivative of 3x is 3, all right? So y prime, then usually what you do is you put this number out front, 3 e to the 3x. So the derivative of e to whatever power is e to whatever power, and then you take the derivative of the exponent. That's what this du dx means. That means you take the derivative of u, the derivative of the exponent. Now this bottom, this dx, you don't know what that means yet, and I'm not going to explain that till we move on a little further, okay? So just kind of ignore that, but that's kind of what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to memorize the derivative of, of e to the x, and it's not hard once you do these a couple times, okay? Okay, the next one, number 10, kind of illustrates two things that are going on here. You should see two things that are multiplied by one another. So when you see that, you should think the product rule, all right? So here we go. Product rule is first guy, all right? So this is the first guy. Derivative of the second guy. The derivative of x cubed is 3x squared. The derivative of negative 2 is 0. First guy, derivative of the second guy. Plus second guy, derivative of the first. Okay? So here's the derivative of e to the x. We're taking the derivative of e to the x. So the derivative of e to the x is e to the x, or whatever power it is, times the derivative of the exponent. The derivative of the exponent, the derivative of x squared is 2x, minus the derivative of x is 1. Okay? So let me go through that again. First guy, derivative of the second guy, plus second guy, which is here, times the derivative of the first. The derivative of e to the x, or e to the whatever, is e to the whatever, and then you take the derivative of the exponent. The derivative of x squared is 2x. The derivative of x is 1. And that's pretty much all you need to do there. You don't need to multiply all these together. The product rule, as you notice, can get pretty long and complicated. Okay? So you just have to keep track of all the terms. All right? Number 11 is the quotient rule. And there's an e there. So here we go. Derivative of the top. The derivative of e to the x, or e to the whatever, is e to the whatever. And then you take the derivative of the exponent. The derivative of negative x is negative 1. Bottom, derivative of the top. Minus top, derivative of the bottom. The derivative of x is 1. The derivative of 5 is 0. So bottom derivative of top minus top derivative of the bottom, all over bottom guy squared. Okay? So for this one, you might be able to do a little bit of simplifying. So this would be x e to the negative x plus 5 e to the negative x. And then this negative sign is going to actually make both of these things negative. Okay? So I got to go back here and change that. Y prime equals, this will be negative, and then this will also be negative. Slow. There you go. Okay, so now we got it right. And then minus e to the negative x over the bottom guy squared. So now you can simplify this a little more. This will be negative 6 e to the negative x, and then over x plus 5 squared. Okay, that is y prime. All right, last thing, and then we'll stop the video, is the second derivative. This is y double prime, it's called, or d squared y over dx squared. All right, that's y double prime. It's the second derivative. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the first derivative, just like you normally did. So the derivative of y is y prime. Derivative of x cubed is 3x squared. Okay, minus. So now we do the derivative of e to the x like we did before. So the derivative of e to the x, or e to the whatever, is e to the whatever. Then you need the derivative of the exponent. The derivative of 2x cubed is 6x squared. Okay. Now, this last thing might cause students some problems. E to the fifth is a number. E is like 3. It's 2.718, blah, blah, blah. So e to the fifth is a number, and the derivative of a number is 0. So this is all done. The derivative of that is 0. So on the end here, you don't need anything. The derivative of e to the fifth is 0. All right? So this is y prime. So I'm just going to put this 6x squared in front, and that's going to go there. Okay? So now that's not the second derivative. That's the first derivative. So what we have to do now is we have to take the derivative again. All right? So the derivative of y prime is y double prime. The derivative of 3x squared is 6x. Now, I'm going to put a minus sign here, and I'm going to put a parentheses. So now when we do this derivative, this you should look at, you see two things there. This is the product rule. So first guy, derivative of the second guy. Derivative of e to the 2x cubed is e to the 2x cubed. And then you need the derivative of the exponent again, which is 6x squared. Okay? So first guy, derivative of the second guy, plus second guy, derivative of the first. The derivative of 6x squared is 12x. Okay? So now, when you simplify this, this negative sign goes through everything. So when you multiply these two together, you get negative 36x to the fourth e to the 2x cubed. And then minus 12x e to the 2x cubed. You're done. So this is y double prime. Okay? So the last one we're going to do is, this one I would argue would be a little easier if you multiplied everything out first. So that's what you're going to do first, is multiply everything out. So 1 over x times x cubed is x squared, minus 4x times 1 over x is 4. So since you did that, and you will learn little tricks as you go about this, this one turns into a very simple problem, all right? So the first derivative, y prime, the derivative of x squared is 2x. The derivative of negative 4 is 0. So now y double prime is really easy. The derivative of 2x is just 2, and you're done. So that one I just wanted to show you. Sometimes it's good to multiply things together. When we did the product rule a couple minutes ago, we didn't multiply things together just to kind of show you that, that was the product rule. But in this case, it was much easier to multiply everything together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is stop the video there. I think it's been close to 25 minutes. So the last rule, which is the harder one, not that it's that difficult, but it's called the chain rule. And we're going to explore some things in this one to help you understand that rule.